Hi, Larry Lane here, and I want to share with you a little bit of a presentation I gave to the Main Street Forum back in 2007. And there I'm exposing two secrets that people can use in order to redesign their storefront and to increase their profits.
His retail work in New York City, the New York City area includes projects for world-renowned corporations such as Nike and Calvin Klein, and for locally owned restaurants and stores such as Good Enough to Eat and Homer. Larry has also published several reports and recordings that help commercial real estate investors and individual homeowners. The Main Street Forum is proud to have Larry with us this morning. Thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
It's great to be here. I wanted to talk to you about a few things about what makes storefronts successful. I have had the opportunity to design several storefronts in New York City in landmark areas and also special purpose districts. And there's some lessons learned that I've experienced, some things that worked for the clients, and I want to explain a few things that worked. What I'm going to tell you a little bit about is that there's some elements that really make a storefront successful. One of them is they need to have a memorable experience. And you all probably have had memorable experiences in different environments. Maybe a store has a certain background that it triggers something from your childhood or so forth. So we'll go more into that. And number two, we need a kit of parts. We need to know what goes in the function of designing a storefront. There are certain rules and so forth, and we'll go through all that too. But first I want to tell you a little story. When I was a kid, when I was in high school, I took on one of the first jobs, my first jobs, one of them, was working at Six Flags Over Texas. Now, Six Flags Over Texas has always been a lot of fun for me as a kid. I always liked going there, and so if I'm going to have fun, I want to be able to, if I'm going to work, I want to have fun where I work. So I thought, well, I'm going to apply to Six Flags Over Texas. Since I lived and grew up in Fort Worth, Texas, it was about a 40-minute drive to get to work, but what the heck, it'd be a great summer job. So I went over there, I went to apply, and on the walls they had all these pictures of people, of men and women, about how you're supposed to dress code, how your hair's supposed to be, and so forth. They even had pictures about how you're not supposed to be, with a big hair kind of going everywhere. They want you a nice clean cut. And I'm thinking, well, there's a mold, but all these things are making an impression on me. And filled out my forms, and you know how you fill out those forms. You've got to put your name, your address, phone number about 50 times, and Social Security numbers. You wonder, well, why do they need it so many times? I got a call from a guy named Ken Young, and he became my boss-to-be at the custom wood shop in the park, inside the park. And it worked out so well for me that I actually worked there for about 5 years, 5 summers, and it made such an impression. In fact, the first impression I had was when Ken Young came driving up in the parking lot, just outside the park itself, to interview me for the first time, and he's driving up in his powder blue TR6 Triumph convertible. It made a huge impression on me. Here I am a kid, and I've always wanted that car, and here he comes driving up with my car that I wanted. And that same kind of impression can happen to you if you have a storefront or if you're going to a storefront. I lived in Cranford, New Jersey, where they have these car shows and so forth, and then the great backdrop is the historical buildings behind that. And guess what? The store owners are actually benefiting from this activity of cars being things. And so there's a special interest to other people, such as Ken Young's TR6, I'm going to be attracted to it, and I'm probably going to want to come back. When I finally started working over the Six Flags, there were certain emotions and certain things that I still can actually picture. I can remember the sounds. I can remember the smells. I remember the creosote smell of the railroad that went all the way around the park. I remember the sounds of the hooting. I remember the sounds of the Wild West gun show just right down the block from where this was in Mexican town, or wherever we called it. I remember the whining of the router to be able to hear, to be able to carve out those wooden signs, and the smell of the sawdust and the heat. Going in the back of the space in the storage, we stacked all these redwood signs ready to be carved, and all the sweat and all the sawdust sticking to you. It was an experience that I'll never forget. That same experience can happen for you in a storefront. You can remember, actually, this is the store that my daughter bought her bride gown in. This is the store where I first held Helen's hand, my first girlfriend. This is the store that actually I like to sit in a bay window like this and look out over there at that theater and see, well, there's Bob with Jane. I thought Bob was dating Susan. You can do people watching, and I did a lot of people watching over at Six Flags. A lot of it. Learned a lot about people there. So can we over here in the storefronts and inside the stores. It also had a theme. Six Flags has various themes, and you can kind of identify the themes. You can learn about certain cultures at these type of places. We had, I believe Six Flags over Texas, where I worked, was the first Six Flags. And it was based on the Six Flags that were over Texas. And so each flag had its own part of the park with its own theme. And I'm going to go over some things about different themes that you can find in some of the storefronts that I worked with that actually worked really well with the customers, and we'll get to that as well too. It gave me a place of identity. It gave me a place where I felt a part of. Just as a storefront, just as a place that you would go to and want to go back to. It had something to share. I had an experience I could share with other people. I could share my experiences and learn and interact with people. I remember actually on Mother's Day was the biggest day of the year for selling our signs, and we'd have these little boys or girls, and they would save their money for as much as they could to come up and buy this heart made out of redwood. Quite honestly, it was kind of ugly, kind of think of it. And it was, if we were to actually we could put borders on our signs. We had two borders. We had a straight border and we had a barbed wire border. And since a lot of people from the country, can you imagine? Some of them actually wanted to spend an extra dollar, no expenses too much for my mom. Let's put a border of a barbed wire around our most expensive, not the small heart, but the large heart saying, Mom, I love you, Charlie, or whatever. It was a big deal. We'll even color in the heart, it's the love of the art, of the love, heart for the love, color in with a red marker, it's just really great. So that was really an experience, and these kids loved it. And these kids had a way to express it back to people, and we can do the same thing with our storefront. So my point is we need to make an experience for our customers. We need to make it come back for more. And to trigger some of the experiences they had in their childhood that is a good way of doing it. It's not the only way, but that's one good way as well. We've even used this, I used the Six Flags as a place for refuge. Unfortunately, when my mom passed away, my father and I went to Six Flags to get away from all the pressure that we just went through. Great place for refuge. And even today, when I go back and I take my two sons to Texas to visit the family, this is where we go, so that they could have their own memories created by their own experiences. And so I could actually share some of the experiences that I had with them as well. Same thing can happen with your storefront. Let's make memories for your customers so they'll want to come back. They'll have their own experiences, pleasurable experiences probably, sometimes maybe not so, but they'll remember that store and will want to come back for more. If you have a store that doesn't have any kind of character or anything, it's not going to even register in their mind for a second. They'll never want to come back and do business for you again. They'll go to the next store. You're just a commodity. You might as well be another big box. What does the Monopoly Man have to do with storefronts? This presentation was given before the big recession hit, and the points that are made in this DVD are more appropriate now than even when I gave it back in November of 2007. For a limited amount of time until November 1st, 2010, I'm releasing a DVD that will have the entire presentation that I gave to the Main Street Forum in November of 2007. There you will also hear the majority of the presentation. You only heard maybe about a quarter of it. And the remaining part you haven't heard is the kit of parts that you need in order to have a successful storefront. In the kit of parts, you'll also learn the history of storefronts and how technology has affected the design of storefronts, also different marketing techniques that people use with the design of storefronts. You'll hear about examples and some more stories. You'll also hear about how the zoning laws and the building codes can affect the design of your storefront. So get your copy today for $97. I will send it to you postage paid anywhere in the world until November 1st, 2010.